This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 6 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by Index Fund Advisors, IFA.com. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of Horse Radio Network. Today, we have Sean McCarthy, trainer of world-class racehorses, and we have Sandy Collier, champion trainer of horses and people too. They are here to give us their views on horsemanship today. Thank you for supporting our sponsors to make this show possible. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to Horsemanship Radio. Welcome back, everyone. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 15th and the 30th of the month. I have my producer, Glenn the Geek, here with me today to tell us more details about the network. Hi, Glenn.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm getting ready for Christmas. Are you excited?
Yes, I'm excited. I'm getting in the Christmas spirit now. We've done a couple of shows now on holiday gifts and things, and that's what gets me in the spirit. And you just spent time in a very warm spot, which is not true of the rest of the country here in the United States, but you were down in Brazil. How did that trip go?
Oh, that was exotic. It was great. It was very hot, though. I know that they're born to have Christmas in the heat because it's their summer down there, but I don't know how they get in the mood. It's just wilting at Christmas time. And we had a great trip, though. I'm very excited to share some of the highlights on
I saw
trip.
Lots of pictures on your Facebook page, so that was cool.
Yeah,
You're right, and it is neat seeing all the tropical settings because it's very tropical.
Oh, my gosh. We were about 2 hours outside of Sao Paulo and out in the country, and you could hear toucans, whatever their sound. I'm not even going to pretend I know how to make a toucan sound. and you hear these. They have these special kinds of little foxes, and they have capybaras, which is the largest rodent on Earth. That's an interesting looking thing. It's about the size of a pig. Oh my goodness. And they have it's very lush and beautiful tropical, the plants that we buy at our nurseries, they're just growing everywhere.
For $100 a pop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Orchids growing out of the trees. You go, oh, that's how they grow. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful there.
Now, you were down there with Monty, right?
Yes, we went down there. Unfortunately, we went down there right before Thanksgiving, so we missed our Thanksgiving. So we're going to have to make up for it at Christmas with turkey. But we went there on the 26th. Dad flew in from England. We met in Washington, D.C., and then flew down to Sao Paulo together and just hit the ground running. We did some amazingly varied and wild things. Besides wild horses, there was a trip to the police academy, which he is affecting. He'll have to talk to you about how the cadets all are reading Man Who Listens and Horse Sense for People as a part of their training. And I know it sounds odd to say that the police are trying to learn not to be violent, but they actually are learning to be we said it this way, that people do bad things, but people aren't bad. And they're going to be responsible, they, meaning all the police that will be responsible for Sao Paulo, that'll be about 100,000 police officers. Wow. Looking after about 20 million people when the World Cup comes and then the Olympics. Yeah. So they're training up for that, and they really are trying to put their best face forward for the world. And for that means that they want to have controlled chaos, but they also want to be known as a police force that is welcoming to the world. So they literally have adopted Dad's concepts to train at the police academy, cavalry and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. I know. There's a lot of different angles we have here. And then we also met with a family that is, I think it's 4th generation now in Brazil, and they own pretty much the world in paper production. They grow the eucalyptus trees in Brazil, and it's just amazing the dynasty that they have. But they met with us because they want to hold their family together, and they want to transition to a better world. And we just were able to spend time with them talking about the ways to trust and communicate, and those are our concepts. So that was a lot of fun. And then, gosh, we did some fun appearances at some farms, and got to see. They have such great breeds down there. Mongologa Machadors.
I was going to ask you about the breeds. What do you see?
Yeah, Paulistas, Mongologa Paulistas. It's a different. It doesn't gate. The Mongologa Machadors gate. They have the Criollos, which are very much like our quarter horses, and they have breeds that they have their own Brazilian warm blood, which of course there's a European descent there, but they have it's a huge country. They have so many different. Oh, there's one Pantanal breed that has adapted to live in the water. Now, anybody who knows horses knows that their feet are not happy to be soaked all day long. Now, these have adapted so that
they're thrush-proof horses.
Thrush-proof horses. Can you believe that?
Need some of those here in Florida.
I suppose. Yeah, that's right. You must have warm weather for your Christmases, though, too.
Yeah, we've actually been we're the only part of the country, only state, I think, that's been in a heat wave. We've been 85 to 90 every day.
Oh, my gosh.
And we've actually been in shorts, and, it's been unusually warm. It's not usually that warm here, but I know that we're hated by most of the country.
I was going to say, probably people don't want to hear this.
No. Now, so these breeds, are they all in the 15 to 16 hand range? Are they smaller? For some reason, I'm just picturing smaller horses.
They do. They tend to be a smaller horse down there. The Marchadors and the most of them even. Even the
sort of Mustang size, average Mustang size.
Well, yeah, they come from the barb. That's a good point. The Spanish horses that came over here with the conquistadors and all that history we have here is the barb. The Northern Africa and Spanish breed, and that barb blood is seen down there as well, and it's manifest into the Criollo, which got larger, but the Mongologas are a petite breed too, very much like our Mustang. You're right. They're very they're not sensitive horses, though. They're just really sweet horses. They love their Arabians down there, and they have some amazing Arabian breeds down there. But I would say I think the biggest breed is Mongologa Marchador, and they're just the sweetest, kindest horses. And I hate to say it, but I think it's because their methods of training have been so harsh for so long that the really sensitive ones just don't make it. And I know that sounds harsh, but this is a survival of the fittest when you put them through such traditional tough breaking. But you know what? That is changing. They're recognizing it, and I have to say that I give them credit for being more open-minded than any other culture that we've been able to be privileged enough to work with. They don't want to be rough with their horses, and they recognize that it isn't very effective. So I put that
good news.
Counter. It is good news ultimately.
Good news. I know there's large breeding operations for Lusitanos down there too.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Any of the Spanish breeds, I guess.
Yep.
Well, that's very, very interesting. And I know in the next episode, we're going to talk to your dad and find out, we're kind of going to do a recap of 2013. So I'm sure he's going to be talking about his Brazilian trip then too.
Oh yeah, I'm going to insist because he's got some great news.
What neat. We always think about your dad working with horses. I don't think about him also translating that to humans for whatever purpose, whether it's police.
He always says that the horses don't have the problems.
Well, that is true.
That is true. With the people.
That's true.
They're fine. It's everybody else that we got to work on. But no, it's not true. They're calling us down there. It's not like we're in imposition. They are requesting. He goes where he is asked for. So we're happy to do that.
Well, very good. Tell us, we have a couple of great guests coming up, as you said, on today's show, and we're going to be talking a lot more about good horsemanship with these guests. I'm excited about that. And then later on, we have a tip for you, and training tips. So we have all of that coming up on today's show. Don't forget, you can listen to us. The easiest way to do that is on your iPhone or your Android phone. Just go into your app store on either one and search for Horse Radio Network. All of the shows on the Horse Radio Network can be found there, including Horsemanship Radio. It just is the easiest way to listen to our shows. Or you can go to horseradionetwork.com or horsemanshipradio.com. Either one, you can listen online as well.
Good. That's great. And we're going to hear more from Sean McCarthy after this message from Index Fund Advisors, matching people with portfolios.
Hi, I'm Mark Hebner, President of Index Fund Advisors and proud owner of Monty Roberts' Willing Partners graduate, He's a Sugar Bear. You know, investment portfolios are a lot like horses. You need to find one that best suits you, your temperament, and your stage of life. Some people might like an energetic horse and an aggressive investment portfolio, while others are more comfortable with a gentle ride and a more conservative investment portfolio. The trick is to find the one that's right for you. That's what Index Fund Advisors is all about, matching people with portfolios, risk-appropriate, low-cost, and globally diversified investment portfolios. You can find the right portfolio for you by taking the Risk Capacity Survey at IFA.com. That's IFA as in Index Fund Advisors. Or you can call us toll-free at 888-643-3133. That's 888-643-3133.
Thoroughbred trainer Sean McCarthy has spent most of his life in the saddle aboard countless great horses, including Jewel Princess, Opening Verse, Strode's Creek, and in 1981, Sean was hand-selected for his talent in horsemanship by internationally renowned trainer Monty Roberts, the man who listens to horses, to work with them starting young horses through nonviolent methods and join-up. So for nearly a decade, Sean worked with Monty at Flagazep Farms, and they would travel the world training horses, and that included the Windsor Castle ride with the Queen, the very first time that Monty demonstrated join-up outside of his walled round pen. And after that, Sean galloped and trained for Hall of Fame trainer Charles Whittingham, and since 1990, Sean has trained on his own and is respected as a trainer nationally and a racing analyst for HRTV as well. Welcome, Sean McCarthy.
Well, nice to talk to you, Debbie. It's good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you, too. Thank you so much for lending your time today. I think you've got a horse in a race today, don't you?
I do. There's an 8-race card today at Hollywood Park, and we are in the 8th race. So right after this interview, we'll quickly head over to Inglewood, California.
Good for you. Thank you so much for cutting out some time for us today. We'll be quick here because I know that you can impart a lot of knowledge really fast. That's what racing trainers do, right?
That's what we try to do. Hopefully we convey that to the horses themselves. Make that whole program fast.
Yeah, the whole thing. So, a lot of this is Horsemanship Radio, and it's about your horsemanship. And I know that we've said it in the intro, that most of your life has been in the saddle. So I want you to bring a little bit about horsemanship to our audience that may not know what a typical day in the life of an on-the-track trainer is all about. Do you work hard?
Well, you do. It starts off early in the morning. It's 7 days a week, and we start off. You get up about in your range from 4:30, and I get to the track a little after 5 o'clock in the morning generally. And I have a list already made up of the horses that are going to train and what we want to do with them regarding their training. I've done that usually the day or night before, so that list is set. By the time I get to the barn, the boys have already got the horses' stalls clean pretty much. They're organizing the tack for the first set to go to the track. And what I do is just come in and kind of go through things quickly, and then I check every horse. I run my hands down every horse's legs in the barn before they go to the racetrack. are aware of temperatures and their eating habits that night, how they ate dinner, what their temperature is, and an ideal temperature is anywhere from 99 to about 101 or a little under 101 would be ideal. So we look at all those. We also keep a close eye on how much water they drink, and all those little things, Debbie, that add up to big things. So you really have to pay attention to the small details. And once we get everything established early on, our first set usually goes to the track at about 5:30 in the morning, and each horse is probably out there, I would say for roughly 20 minutes. The longer the better, really. The more time we're able to take with them on the racetrack, the more I like it. And sometimes they come off the track and take them for a long walk home. Sometimes they go for a long walk before they go to the track, because I've always done this day. The more I can have them out of the stalls, the more healthy it is for them. You're talking about a 1,000-pound animal who's, on the racetrack and in the stall quite a bit during the day, and they're not meant to be like that. They're meant to be out moving, and we try to do that as much as we can. So we progress through the morning, and we're usually done training, going to the track, that is, by about 9:30 in the morning. The track closes for training at 10 o'clock in the morning. It opens at 4:45. So we have plenty of time to get things done. And then a lot of work really starts, actually, with rehabilitation things and icing horses and doing horses up in poultices and rubbing on legs and shoeing, do a lot of shoeing at that time, and just kind of going over how the horses train that morning. And then again, reset the set list for the following day. So by the time we're done and the barn begins to quiet down, it's about 10:30. We feed a light grain breakfast at 10 o'clock in the morning. They get there every morning at 10 o'clock, and by the time those feed trips go in, the guys wake up the shed go, and things wind down about 10:30 in the morning. And
Wow.
and the day continues on from there. You got kind of double sessions, if you were. If you're not racing, you go home and eat a little lunch, and you kind of get on the phone and talk to clients and prospective clients and jockey agents and things like that. And I usually try to get a nap in there at some point in time, and then about till 2:30 in the afternoon, we're back at the track, and then we have afternoon chores, and that consists of cleaning, picking out the stalls, and setting the feed for the evening feed. Walking, I get a lot of my horses out and walk them in the afternoon, try to walk them for 15 or 20 minutes at a time. You're checking temperatures again, and just these typical afternoon chores, watering off and setting the feed. Then we go ahead and we put the feed tub. The night feed goes in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If it's winter time, we're going ahead and blanketing at that time, blanket all the horses and get everybody bedded down, and things wind down usually about 4:30 in the afternoon.
I'd go to bed at that point. I'm done. I'm exhausted listening.
That's just a day when you're not racing. If you're racing, then things get a little hectic, and sometimes they do. It depends how many horses you're running that day and what type of time of day you're running. So that can all vary.
So we know that, I'm kind of stressed just listening to all that. And I know that horses, they take on some of that stuff. What do you do? I like that you walk them back and forth and you get some time, to be a horse. What else do you do? Some of the de-stressors that you think of?
Some of the other things that we do.
De-stress, things to calm the horses.
But that's a lot of it right there. It's just, I find, spending as much time with them as you can. It's not just hurry up, get in there, get them trained, get them done up, and let's get out of here type of thing. That to me, that routine to me would tend to lead to get a horse a little bit more nervous about things. I think the more time you can camp with them, if you will, and spend time with them, to a point where you don't want to be in the way and bother them. There's been times, and I've read on articles on trainers, famous trainers, that for example, take a horse out of for example, I may have a horse I'm going to run, say, at Churchill Downs, and I'll ship from California to Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. I'll take that one horse, I've room an exercise rider. Well, I'm there for 4 or 5 days before the horse runs on Saturday, and I ship in there on Tuesday, and I've just got the one horse. And there's a time where you can spend too much time with him. In other words, I'm bored, so I'm hanging around there all day fooling around with the horse. The horse never gets a chance to rest and relax. Yeah. So you don't want to go overboard, is my point. I know guys that have done that and thought they cost their horse because they just kind of got him they never let him just relax and settle down. So, but But I would, in a nutshell, you just pay attention to everything at the time. In those morning hours, in those early morning hours when you're around the barn, you just make sure you pay attention to them and give them all the attention you possibly can. And that has a lot to do with, I think, them getting to know you, getting to know the routine, and being more confident in their surroundings, and therefore they're going to relax more.
Mm-hmm. Good. So you think they benefit by a routine because
I do. But sometimes you want to change that routine up. I mean, you may start training at a specific time, but what you do at that time during that period of time when you do train, I try to do different things, whether it's a different distance I'm galloping the horse, or things like that. Go a different way to the track, come a different way home from the track. They're like you and I. I mean, they're no different than a human. They can get pretty bored with the routine, and when you get bored with the routine, you kind of lose interest in what you're doing. So you need to try to change things up every now and then.
Yeah, good advice. So I know that I couldn't not ask you this question because you go so far back with Dad, Monty, and back before. Really, I mean, what was it, 81 that you met?
Yeah, I went to work for your dad in 81 right out of high school. Yeah.
Right out of high school. That's great. And so you knew him before the Queen invited him over to England and really started that whole movement on what people now call natural horsemanship, which we didn't know what that was. Back then it was called good horsemanship. But but you knew it before people really accepted the fact that there was some validity to join up in the language of the horse itself, gestural language like signing for the deaf. Was it something that you kind of kept in your back pocket too, like Dad did, or was it something that you weren't asked about? And you were right out of high school, I know, but how did you see it change over the 20 years or so?
Well, at that time, your father, as you well know, was pretty in depth in the thoroughbred industry. They were buying and raising horses and yearlings and raising quite a few yearlings and buying quite a few yearlings and selling them as 2-year-olds and training, and that was his primary business at the time. And we were probably starting about 140, 150 yearlings a year. And when I first came to the farm, your father was in Kentucky at the September sales in Keeneland, which I think I got there on September 3rd, 1981. I went down and applied and tried for that job my senior year of high school during Easter vacation, and I got the call from Crawford Hall, who was the farm manager at the time in August, to be here September 3rd. So I got there, and your father was away, and we just had the yearlings up in the round pen, just the homebreds that were already on the farm, starting those and surf singling and things like that. And so when we never got on anything until Monty got home. And then we started getting on the horses when he got home. And the routine was very basic compared to what it is today. And he always said doing those demonstrations, those were in fact demonstrations. It wasn't a situation where you got on a horse in 30 minutes and rode it, saddled it, throttled it, and rode it in 30 minutes. So we had a lot of foundation work before we got on the horses and continued on. Now going into 81, I think, or going into 82 at some point, he started figuring out a marketing technique where, hey, it would be a good idea to get these people from the racetrack, bring them up here to the farm, and do a breaking demonstration for them and show them, the technique that you see today, which was one of the early stages as far as what you see today. I mean, he's evolved it so much since then and gone into different branches and still continues that today. But we would get 2 or 3 buffaloes of people up and have a barbecue for them and start a horse for them using the technique that you see today and the join up, and we called it advance and retreat. Then we didn't have the join up term at that time, and people were very, very impressed with it. And but at the same time, some people thought it's a hoax, that can't work that way, and they would continue to see it and would become believers in it. So we would do that, and word got out, and through the breaking seasons that went on from there through the years, you'd get periodically people come up wanting to see Monty do that, and he would, and then that continued on, and fast forward to 1988, the winter, December of 1988, when Sir John Miller, who was the Queen Equerry at the time, and a friend of his,
Right.
John Bowles, who lived in the valley there, came to the farm to see a yearling started, and primarily for Sir John Miller. He was interested in it, and John Bowles bonded the farm, and so we did a yearling then. We had a couple left over who had been sick earlier in the fall, and so they didn't get started till late, so we still had a few left to start. So Bonnie said, pick one out, and I got one and brought it in, and we did the demonstration, and it went super, and we got done, and your father, I said to your dad, I said, hey, would that be a kick if we got invited to England? I was just a kid, I hadn't been anywhere yet. And he just kind of shrugged it off and walked down the shed road. I think we went up the house and had lunch with the boys or something. Well, fast forward to late February of '89, we're down at Hollywood Park for the 2-year-old and training sale. I'm down the shed road there, and he yells at me, hey, Sean, come down here. I got to show you something. So I run down to the office, and there is his letter from Sir John Miller requesting Her Majesty for us to go to England and do demonstrations at Windsor Castle, and then set up an itinerary for us to travel all over England, and that was the start of it right there. So we departed for England in April of '89, arrived at Windsor Castle, and we started 16 horses, if I'm not mistaken, there in the 5 days we were there. Quite a few different breeds, ponies and fast horses and thoroughbreds, and we kept one thoroughbred filly. I think she was 3 at the time, and was owned by the Queen Mother, and we rode her every day for the 5 days so that you could see the finishing product. And so on the 5th day, which was a Friday, I rode that filly outside the Mews and up to the front of Windsor Castle, and the Queen had an engagement that afternoon, and I rode right up to her with a lead horse foot in front of me, and Sir John walking behind me, and your mother and your father and your brother were all standing off to the side. And I remember riding up that front lawn thinking, I've got to take the chill my nerves, if you will, and
Yeah.
I was trying to get, you think of something else, and all I said to myself was, boy, I'd hate to be the poor guy to have to mow this lawn. That's all I was thinking of, was walking up the lawn,
It is big.
and there's the Queen standing there right in front of me, and I'm riding right to her, and but that said, she was with us every day prior to that, when we were working with the horses earlier.
And
So
how old are you How old are you at this point, John?
I think at that time I was 24, 25.
Wow.
25, I think, 24, 25 years old, I think I was, yeah.
That's amazing.
And it was amazing, and it was really fun. And then she had an itinerary for us to go all over England, and we went from Plymouth, which is in the bottom of England, all the way to Gleneagle, Scotland. I think we started 36 horses that had never been ridden or saddled, and rode every one of them. And
You rode every
pretty
one
proud
of them.
of that,
Yeah,
and
you rode
so,
every one of them. Yeah, very
yeah,
good.
And that was exciting. And then we got called back, invited back that fall from Horse and Hound magazine, sponsored us to go back later that fall, and that was kind of that's when Monty really took off and changed gears and went in that direction with the demonstrations you see today all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, his thoroughbred industry or his business had dropped completely off back home, and it left him pretty freed up to do that. Mm-hmm. As I recall, I don't know if you remember that, but the business, he was rejected by the industry pretty much at that point for doing, I don't know, what would they call it, voodoo horsemanship or something?
Well, I think he was changing. The industry at the time was changing. It was consolidating. The sales business was becoming a time that when you wanted to go buy yearlings to resell them, you really had to. They were starting to put up 6 figures to do those things, and the economics really weren't at that time weren't working that way. And he was really successful at what he was doing with the breaking the demonstration, and outside of the racing world, he was getting a lot of recognition and achieving a lot, and so I think he continued down that path, and it was productive, very productive, and a lot of I know for a fact that TaylorMade Farm in Lexington, Kentucky, which is one of the premier thoroughbred operations in the world, use a lot of his techniques today. The basics that he had are used for his joint up because we did demonstrations there at TaylorMade early on.
With Joe Taylor, with the father.
That's right. And they really, really accepted it and passed it on to their employees, emphasizing to use those techniques as a foundation. And it really took off in the industry from that point. Now everybody has their own, they put their own spin on it and modify it according to themselves and certain things that they do. But your father
but you were
had
there.
A lot to do.
You knew that it could work right then.
Yeah.
When you're,
Certainly. Yeah. It wasn't
Certainly
a situation. It's not a technique that, hey, hurry up, let's get this done type of technique. It's really based on building a sound relationship with the horse themselves, and obviously them getting to trust you. And then when they do that, things become a lot more smoother and a lot quicker. And I say that in that I was always told, if you want to go fast, go slow. Go slow to go fast. And that generally really applies to life.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would be envious of your position to be so young without all the filters on, right? All the preconceived notions about traditionalism and going straight into that that moment in history, really, where a lot of things changed for the training of a vast number of horses at that point. I'm really, really pleased that you got to relate that story to a lot of us who weren't there at the beginning and weren't able to see that. Do you have any funny stories back then? I think you traveled in the Queen's car. Am I right? It was the Queen's car?
She loaned us a car. I know she loaned us a car, and we had that car the whole time. There's some funny stories that I don't know if they're good for radio.
I don't know if you can share,
I mean, just, some funny stories at dinners and things like that. It was, you were going it was like your rodeo or a horse show, and you were in a different town every couple of nights, so you were really on the go all the time. And the longest period of time we stayed in one place was with Sir John Miller, and that in Oxford, and that was a lot of fun. He was a lifelong bachelor. He had a big mare he lived in, and he had some house help there, Mr. and Mrs. Horseman, and they were great people. And I mean, stereotypical English house help. Always dressed well and well mannered, and you wouldn't know they were there unless you were looking for them. But Mr. Horseman, he would come in the room in the morning when I was laying there and get up, and those rooms have about 17 windows in them and a shade on every one of them. He'd just wheel around there and just whip every shade up like boom, 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 set like an alarm clock going off. And I do remember one story. Your father and I and Sir John were sitting in the parlor, and we just come home and he sat down, and Sir John asked if anybody would like something to drink, and we all said sure, we'll have this or that, the other thing. And so he told Mr. Orson, go ahead and see if you can, get what we need here. And so he disappeared for about 20 minutes. Sir John's looking over his paper, and he looks at me, and I'm the kid in the room. I'm the youngest guy around there by 25, 30 years or whatever it was. 20 years, 25 years anyway. And he says, well, you go find this horse and see what's going on. I'm looking all over the place. Well, I can't find him anywhere. I duck behind this collar, and there he is with testing what we're supposed to be drinking to see if it's the right stuff. So he speaks out. He says, I'll be right there, he says. So that was an innocent, funny story and things like that.
That is innocent. That's good. That's so
it was good. And just little things, but you met a lot of neat people, a lot of characters. Got to meet a lot of interesting people. So it was really exciting. And the older I get, the more you appreciate those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you were young. It's amazing, really. So turning to racing for one last question here. I got to ask you. You're young, really, in the industry. I think the demographic for fans anyway is getting older in the racing industry, and I'd love your perspective is perfect to ask the question of what would attract young people to racing again. I mean, what's working for it and what's not?
Well, I think they're trying to market, and I think they're trying to figure out what to market. Are they marketing gaming? Are they marketing the sport? Well,
from the horse side, what can they do for horses that would maybe bring people back to racing?
I think that if they sped the program up, not necessarily, we have race during a day at the racetrack, you'll have anywhere from 8 to 10 races a day. That's about 6 hours of being at the track with about 30 minutes in between each race. In today's youth, if you will, that's just too much time. You know, things are so quick now, and especially with technology today and people being on tablets and computers and everything's instant. So, in racing, I think would help quite a bit is and it's very possible to do, is to speed up the time between races. If you can shave, right now it's like about 25 minutes between races. I think you can knock off easily another 6 or 7 minutes, make it 18 minutes between races. Mm-hmm. That keeps the young people, more focused on what's going on. You got to have them involved. Those kind of things. The horses themselves, the event itself, if you will, doesn't necessarily need any changing. In other words, distance. I prefer distance of races to be a little longer. We run what we call sprint races, which are 6 furlong, 3/4 mile races. And then there's the Kentucky Derby, for example, which is 1.25 miles. That's the classic distance here in America of racing. So longer races are more entertaining and more tactful, if you will. But the average fan wouldn't really necessarily appreciate that. I think what you have to do to get young people more interested in it is speed up the program itself during the day. That's not going to cost anybody anything to do that. And then again, the racing itself is pretty standard. I mean, there's nothing really I can tell you to change as far as what we're doing in the athletic event, if you will. And so that would be the main thing I would do. And then as far as marketing, I think there's no substitute, and I don't know if I'm going off track here or not, but there's no substitute for customer service. You know, if somebody walks in that racetrack and you ask them, can I do anything for you, if they have that look on their face where they're lost. And when they leave, ask them if they had a good time and if there's anything they could do to improve your experience.
Being a good host.
Those little things like that cost nothing and go a long way.
Make it a lot more fun. Well, it's a beautiful, Santa Anita and Hollywood, gorgeous facilities, and I hope that they always remain, and it's a great tradition. And I think the horses are treated better than they ever have been. And I love having you on and giving your perspective. I hate that races are demonized if they don't deserve it, and I'd like to have you back, Sean, if I could. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your horsemanship and some tips that you may have for our listeners.
I'd love to do that. Dave, it was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Sean. Off to the races.
Hi, I'm Monty Roberts, and I know that I'm transforming the lives of horses globally. You can learn to do it too on my Equus Online University. There's a new lesson on there each week, all the way from join up to advanced. Watch world's champions give their lessons. Join at montyroberts.com. Go to my Equus Online University. You can transform your horse too.
Our next guest is Sandy Collier, and she started her lifelong career with horses on the East Coast, riding and showing in 3-day event horses. In 1972, she moved to California, and she began her transition to Western ranch life and cow horses. Big change. And in 1993, Sandy became the first and only woman ever to win the prestigious it's called the National Reined Cow Horse Snaffle Bit Futurity. That's in Western reining. And she was on a mare called Miss Ray Dry. She's amazing. And she won the Open Champion Reserve on Diamond Star. And in 2002, she became an AQHA World Champion on She's a Shinette. Sandy's also won the NRCHA Stallion Stakes and Hackamore Classic and was the NRHA Futurity Reserve Limit Open champion. Man, she's won a lot of stuff. She is one experienced and an awesome performer. She operates her training facility in Buellton, California, which is right down the road from Monty and Pat. And she's also a AAA rated judge now, an international clinician, and she's authored books and DVDs. Reining Essentials is a great one. In 2011, she was inducted into the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, and in 2013, she became a member of the NRCHA's Hall of Fame. Welcome, Sandy Collier.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, we're happy to have you. You are such an experienced and piece of history with both Monty Roberts, my dad, and what you've done and been able to achieve in the reining world, the Western reining world, and we're just excited to have your perspective here on Horsemanship Radio. I wanted to get started straight away with what our audience thinks is the core beliefs, that how we partner with our horses and we get more generosity, and in your case you get breakthrough performance giving those types of training. So tell us a little bit about your philosophy in that.
Well, I would have to agree with you. Partnership is the most important. I like to always think of my horse and myself as a team. And so as a member of a team, I'm always going to do whatever it takes to make sure that the other half is comfortable, in shape, sound, happy, knows his job, and is physically able and willing to perform. And if for some reason my horse resists or starts to misbehave, I always look at myself first. Like, did I not explain this very well? Am I moving him along too fast? Is something sore? And I'll rule all of that out before I ever consider that he might be the weak link.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, that's great. So if he's resisting something, you're looking in the mirror and thinking, is it pain, or is it just something he's bored maybe? What are some of the things that you've found in some of even the most talented horses you've dealt with?
Well, they don't all learn the same. They're like children. So if I explain something to a horse and he doesn't get it and he continues to not get it, it's my job to come up with other ways to try to show him what it is I want. That's how come I'm a little higher up on the food chain than he is. And so,
that's right.
If I exhaust all of the tools in my toolbox, then I might have to look somewhere else for some help. But usually it's just that you don't explain it to them in a way that they get. So you have to kind of try different things, and then all of a sudden the light will come on and they'll get it. They want to get it.
Yeah,
they want to get it. So we just have to be sure we explain it right.
Yeah, I like that comment. You have a great book that you've put together, and I've been reading some of the chapters in it too. And I love this one thing that you said, that if they improve 1% a day, that's 100% in 100 days. Is that really doable?
Absolutely. It's far more doable than trying to make a horse 10% better a day, because you may go forward that one day and get really lucky, but you're going to go backwards so fast it'll make your head spin. 1% a day is doable, it's sustainable, and it's really rewarding.
But the trick is to always be moving forward and not do anything that makes them go backwards, huh?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Backwards always goes faster in the bigger percentages. Like the stock market. It takes the stock market forever to crawl up before it can take it just a day or two to fall.
That's a pretty timely statement, but I was just checking the news.
Yes.
And I like how you quoted other people in it too, Tommy Lasorda. That was interesting, about perfect practice. So you do believe in that. You really stick to a routine and try to make those practices perfect?
Well, it really doesn't do you any good if you're practicing continually without, a perfect. If you're not doing it as best as you can. All the wet saddle blankets in the world aren't going to get a horse trained if they aren't good saddle blankets. So, it's like anything else. If you practice a golf swing every day and you just don't do it right, you're really not moving your game forward.
That's a good point. That sounds fair to the horse too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you made a comment too that I'd love to expand on, which is the horse only remembers the very last thing that he did before you gave him comfort or the ceasing of work.
Yeah, that's a really important part of training, because a horse learns from the release of pressure, not the application of it. So if, for instance, we were trying to make our horse side pass so we could open or shut a gate, if we're using our leg on him to make him move over, he doesn't move over because we're pressing him with our leg. He moves over because when he moves, we stop pressing. That's how they learn. So the release of that pressure is the crucial part in training a horse, because they remember the last thing that they did. Oh, I moved away from her leg and she quit pushing me with her leg. Oh, eureka. So that's why maybe I can teach a horse to do something a little more quickly than someone else, because my timing is that much better. The release of that pressure and also the application of that pressure, but it's just it's a matter of timing.
That's excellent. So being into pressure animals, we actually have to fight their nature, or we train them for us. who are not into pressure animals. I get it. That's amazing. I'm going to switch gears real quick. I'd like to hear.
Okay.
I know everybody else would. We'd like to hear about how it was to be the first woman to win in a male-dominated snaffle bit fraternity.
Well, male-dominated or not, it was still the absolute thrill of a lifetime. I cannot even tell you. It was like riding a wave that it just wouldn't stop. It was the most amazing feeling of my life, and I had never thought it was even possible. Even after they called out my name and I'm galloping around the arena going, what am I doing? Oh my God, I won the snaffle bit fraternity. It was so amazing. And it was, everyone was so supportive of it. It was just a wonderful thing.
So, yeah, you made a little comment in there. So did you feel like it really wasn't a male-dominated? Did you feel like just the right woman hadn't come along yet?
Well, it's been male-dominated just because it's a very difficult discipline on your body, and it's just more geared toward men and their physique and their lifestyle, and there just aren't that many women that are involved in it. So that's the reason that it's been male-dominated, I believe. But yeah, the right woman just hadn't come along to win it.
Good girl. I'm glad it was you.
Me too.
Yeah. and you won so many championships, and people can read your bio. They've seen so much that you do. But I'm feeling like you're turning a corner. Some of the conversations we've had, that you're starting to feel more like you want to go into the mentoring position. And that's so unusual for trainers, I have to say. So many of them like to keep it close to the vest and, save their secrets for the horses and maybe their most intimate students, but you're not like that.
Well, thank you. I think that's a great compliment. I've always been into teaching and sharing knowledge, and I know how hard it was when I was trying to learn, because it was the way you just said. You had to sneak around behind the barn to see the tricks, and it was very hard getting started. But I think most importantly, it's not fair to the horses to not get the benefit from all of our cumulative knowledge over all these years. And so to hide things just slows down the progression and evolution of our sport. So, when you look at videos from back in the 90s and 80s, we have come such a long way. So because I feel that way, and yes, as I'm getting older, I'm changing gears a little bit.
I didn't say that.
I've done a lot of reflection, and it's really important for me to share, the things that I've learned, and so I've done my own training DVDs and written a book called Reining Essentials. But now what I've gotten into, so many of the guys will never get together to write their own book or do DVDs. So I've been call the series Tips from the Masters, and I've been interviewing fellow trainers, friends, mentors that have won over $500,000. What particular tip has really changed their program, or do they always teach, or they wish all their non-pros knew? And I've been recording those and releasing volumes of them. And just actually today I released tips about bits, which I've taken master bit makers and
that's good.
Have gotten all this knowledge together about bits and bitting, because so few people actually understand that too. So
boy, that's true.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to lately, and I have learned so much. It's been really exciting. Oh, is that how that guy does it? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure, that makes sense.
Should have done this years ago, right?
They have been very educational for me. It's just a way to archive thousands of training hours, that might otherwise be lost.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody was doing that. I remember when the Queen first asked Dad to write a book, and he went, "Are you kidding? I don't want to write a book. Can I do a video?" Even he was at least willing to do videos, but a lot of guys aren't willing to do. And I don't. You're probably right. It's probably just the exercise of going through it too. It's not just that they're keeping it all to themselves. It's just accomplishing it. So good for you to do that.
Well, some people just aren't good teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Some trainers can show a horse and don't train one that well. Some are blessed with all of it. But just because you can train a horse doesn't mean you can teach. You have to really, really own it to teach it. And so, and going through that process of actually writing it down, you learn even more.
Yeah. What was the funniest experience you've gone in this Tips from the Masters? What did you Got any funny stories?
Oh, we've got some great bloopers. You'll have to buy the volumes to see the funny stuff that happened while we filmed it.
You're not going to give us one? Give us one.
Oh, well, it's funny that none of the guys even know what their websites are.
Oh,
and
that's
it's funny to hear them stumble over the www. Oh, hell, I don't know. Ask my wife.
I'll put it in the show notes. That's pretty good. Okay, so now you got the people down. Now I'm gonna switch gears once again to tell me about your equine athlete. What do you look for in a great equine athlete suited for your sport?
For me, the most important quality is having a great mind and a good work ethic. Mm. Then, of course, they have to be athletes too, but it doesn't matter how athletic they are if they don't want to try or they can't learn. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of they have to have the mind, the work ethic, and be an athlete. If they're big triers, they've got to be able to stay sound. So, they have to have the body of an athlete, but boy, they've got to have the mind. And it just seems like it's a very rare package that, you find that has them all, has all those qualities.
Yeah, that's true. And you probably have to go through quite a few just to get there, I imagine.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how do you stay in shape, too?
Not as much as I used to.
Well, I know you've had some challenges with some joints. But
I wouldn't pass a vet check now for love or money. I used to be a lot more fit than I am now. I used to go to the gym regularly, play racquetball, weight train, spin. I did all that in the afternoons and evenings, and to stay fit so that I wouldn't get hurt. But I have had several shoulder and knee issues, so now it's down to yoga, resistance, and some spinning.
That's okay. Maybe we should have started there. That's good stuff. Yoga, resistance, aerobics. Maybe we should have started there. Do you practice breathing at all? I'm looking at yoga and thinking, yeah, that makes sense because so much of pressure and performance. Does breathing affect you at all?
I have to say that's probably something that I'm not really that aware of. I do know when you come out of the arena after going down the fence, it almost feels like you did all the running in the arena. So you do have to be fit in a certain way, but it's probably not something that any of us practice.
And you never get nervous?
Oh, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking elevated heart rate. No. Do you feel like you do anything to keep yourself from elevating all those physio signs? For my entire show career, I have always tried to just go in and do the best job I could do on that day, on that horse, in that arena. And that takes a lot of the pressure off of me. Yeah. I try not to self-inflict pressure. Yeah. It's hard enough when you have a good horse and you're trying to show, but if you have a horse that isn't and you're trying to ride around some landmines, it's equally difficult. So, there's always going to be adrenaline and nerves, and the more money that's up, the more, you feel nervous, and the more you transmit that to the horse, and your timing's different. But if I try to be the best I can be that day, that's just the best I can be. That's great advice. What advice would you give to a young person starting out who really just admires what you do and would like to get into that discipline and that sport?
I get asked that a lot, and I guess I would have to say to first choose someone who they emulate, not just in their riding career and how they perform, but as a person. Because if you're going to spend a lot of time with anybody, you want to spend it with someone whose values are shared, and who you admire as a person, their character, their integrity, their work ethic, all of that, because all of that's going to rub off along with the horse, the learning about the horse and the horse training. Mm-hmm. So find someone that you emulate, leave your ego at the door, and jump in with both feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel, that's good advice. I feel like there's a lot of people who want it faster these days. Young people want it faster and easier these days, and it's hard to get somebody who works hard. But are you seeing some talent out there in some young folk?
There's always talent coming up, I think, in any generation. But I think that this generation in particular that's coming up is a pretty much instant gratification generation with internet and everything else. They can't just wait 1 second when they click the mouse. It's got to happen now, before they get on to their next game or whatever they're doing on the internet. I mean, they just are a generation of people that have expectations of things happening a lot faster than you and I did. And it may happen that way on the internet, but it sure doesn't happen that way with animals and livestock. So, but there's going to be good, talented kids coming up, in every generation through the ranks, and they're here. they're nipping at all of our heels.
That's great. That's great. Is it a growing sport? Do you think the reining and, I'm seeing some growth in different countries and different disciplines. What do you think about reining in the U.S.?
Absolutely. Reining and rein cow horse and cutting are all those performance sports are growing leaps and bounds every year. It's very exciting.
Great. That is. So do you see your future is going to be, you're going to stay in training and teaching?
Well, I love giving clinics. And I love doing these educational DVDs, but I also love training horses and giving lessons here at the ranch. So I'll find whatever mix works for me, for my body, as I'm getting older. And hopefully it'll all, it'll be successful, and I'll be able to help a lot of people, and then I'll feel good about everything.
Well, that's good. I love your plan. We'll have to stay in touch with you and follow your career now. It's fascinating what you've done. You've just been a game changer in the industry, and we love how you treat your horses.
Thank you.
I would love to have you back for a tip if you would give us to. You have years and years of experience, and we'd love to have you back on just to give us a little insight in something maybe that people ask you quite often and that you like to share. Would that be okay?
I'll come back anytime. You bet.
Thanks. Okay, Sandy. Thank you, Sandy Collier, for being a part of Horsemanship Radio. Next up, we have Charlotte Bradall with this training tip. Charlotte, thank you. This is the Horse Sense with Charlotte Bradall Baker segment, and we would love to have your insights on what are some of the most common problems that you see when you're judging horses in dressage.
I think tension, many times you see in the horses, and what I'm always looking for is harmony. I want to see a horse that looks really happy in his work, with confidence in his rider, and where there's a nice elastic connection from the rider's hand to the mouth. And a lot of times you'll see that is too strong, and because of that, the horse will go behind the vertical or open mouth, or with mouth issues, and we see, I think, too much of that. And I think that's one of the things that riders really need to strive for, is that nice, like rubber band, elastic connection from the.
So you judge for the harmony. Mm-hmm. Is that being taught out there, Charlotte, or is that something?
I think it definitely is, and just not by all, just like in any discipline. I just don't think it has much to do with the discipline. I think it's just each individual trainer.
Yeah, and this is something that is reflected in the behavior of the horse as well?
Well, yeah, because you'll see tension, and you'll see different, usually mouth issues, that the horse is opening his mouth or going behind the vertical line and trying to evade the bit because of hands being too strong, or where there's just not enough give in the rein.
Yeah, and you feel as a judge that you can reward these harmonious gestures.
Yeah, absolutely, you certainly can. Yes.
Do judges talk about these qualities? Do judges
all the
confer
time
with each other? Yeah,
all the time. That's one of the things I love about judging, is that the discussions we have are just fantastic. Yeah, so we do all the time. On every break and dinner and stuff, we discuss all these things, and it's very, very educational for all of us to get each other's, feedback.
Right, and you're living in both worlds right now, so in shape and able to compete, but yet to be in the industry long enough to be granted a license to judge as well. That must be a small club that you're in.
Well, the International Judges Club, yes.
The
national,
congratulations.
We have quite a few, but I've only been judging internationally for the last, I think, 5 years now. So that's been just a whole new world to get into that. And of course, it's very, very interesting to judge around the world. I judged in Australia earlier this year and in France. And very, very, very interesting. And also in the different countries, the styles can be a little bit different too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations for that. For all that you've accomplished, I want to have you back, and you can tell us more about some of the travels that you've got coming up, which are pretty exotic. Thank you, Charlotte Burdall-Baker, for being with us today.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty's looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged, in Solvang, California. January 25, he has a Night of Inspiration, which is an author and doing the Join Up. And for those that just love the whole idea of Join Up, it is fun. And then the next day we do a Life Lessons, which is a workshop. And it's a personal development workshop that is brand new. We're really excited about it. And everybody gets a book, and they get to do a little bit of personal development work with those chapters from The Man Who Listens to Horses about overcoming adversity and maximizing your potential. It'll be really interesting. And then he goes on into England and Germany. And for anybody who wants to see the website and where he will be and those calendar dates and how to get information, it's at www.montyroberts.com. Or you can call the office at 805-688-6288.
For details about today's show, go to horsemanshipradio.com, where you can find links, photos, and more information about all of the guests that have been on the shows. It's also a place you can go to listen to all the past episodes. You can catch them all and catch up. A lot of people do that. Go back to episode 1. You know, most of the information that you talk to the guests about, unlike some of our other shows, which are more timely, is the information that you talk to each one of these guests about is not time sensitive. You can go back and listen to it. It's going to be the same good information, 3 months from now. So,
that's right. That's right.
Yep, so that's very important to keep in mind. And as always, we love your feedback. You can follow us on Facebook under facebook.com/Monty Roberts and Twitter at twitter.com/Monty_Roberts.
Yeah, and many thanks to our sponsors. And be sure that you visit the other great shows on Horse Radio Network, too, at www.horseradionetwork.com. And until next time, have many happy horse hours.